Hey, good morning. It's been a few days. I figured that I would share some of my thoughts. Having a rough day, and I just politics is a great way for me to blow off steam. Even if the politics is negative, it helps me blow off steam. Isn't that crazy? I want to talk about Bill and Hillary Clinton. I despise them. What can I say? I I despise Bill and Hillary Clinton. And I managed to despise them now more than ever. I wish they would go away. And why do I despise them so much? I'm going to have to rehash some history. I was very young at the time, 1984, didn't know who the Clintons were. But 1984 happened. Ronald Reagan was reelected president. Wasn't the election outcome I wanted at that age, but it is what it was. Ronald Reagan got elected with a massive landslide, and it was like a 49 state landslide. So what happens? Well, um, the Democrats decided to react to it, respond to this. Like, wow, we lost the 1984 election. Walter Mondale won't be president. So what do we do to make sure that the Democrats make a comeback in 1988? Well, um, a lot of Democrats got together, high-ranking Democrats got together and founded an organization called the Democratic Leadership Council. I know some of you be like, he's talking about the DLC again, but I have to talk about them. Now, at that time, Bill Clinton was the governor in Arkansas. He was not the founder of the DLC. I don't think he was one of the founders. I believe most of the founders of DLC was Sam Nunn, people like I believe I think Dick Gephardt was a member. I believe Dianne Feinstein. It was just some of the really big kind of conservative Democrats at that time. I believe Evan Bayh might have been a member. Anyhow, but it was an organization that just kind of started picking up steam and encouraging the Democratic Party to not be so beholden to the unions anymore. In other words, the Democratic Party, which was not quite a Labor Party, not quite a Social Democratic Party, but kind of acted as one in the United States within the confines of our two-party system, which we unfortunately have. Um, because of that, they wanted to appeal to the center and kind of move the party away from left wing ideologies, not just the unions, but they wanted, they wanted to get away from the cultural aspect of what it meant to be a Democrat. And to them, it was that aftertaste of George McGovern's defeat in 1972. It was the party of hippies who never quite stopped being hippies in the eyes of the American people, and the Democratic Party were kind of worried about that, and so and to a lot of people, it was like, oh, that's the party of welfare, that's the party of those black people, that's the party of the unions, and that's the party of tax and spend people. It's the party of uppity feminists. It's the party of the homosexual activists. That's so it was kind of like on a foreign policy, they're soft on communism. So and the Democratic Party got scared of their own shadow, and they decided to adopt a strategy of being afraid to take their own side in an argument. And it kind of really manifested full steam when Michael Dukakis, who was not really that bad of a guy, not as good as I thought he was back then in 1988, but he was not that bad of a guy. Although he did have a personality he had a personality of a T-shirt, a white T-shirt, or a handkerchief, or something like that. Um, he wasn't very charismatic. He was basically Ross Serling from the Twilight Zone, um, without the hypnotist. He'll put you to sleep listening to him. And anyway, they just allow your Vice President George Herbert Walker Bush to walk all over Dukakis and criticize him for being a member of the ACLU. I would join the ACLU because George Bush told us all about the ACLU, and at an impressionable age of 19, I was like, sign me up. Um, he told us about the ACLU. He was staunchly for the death penalty, and he was placating to the Jerry Falwells and the Pat Robertsons and all the other evangelicals, um, trying to do their part to create their version of a Sharia law with a Christian label in the United States. And part of the reason why I was not a never became a Republican, I was turned off by the evangelicals that were loud in the Republican Party, still are. Um, because of that, after 1988, Democrats decided we're not going to lose 1992, whatever it takes. So by 1989, 1990, Bill Clinton took over the Democratic Leadership Council, and the party moved a little bit further to the right. In 1992, there was a contentious primary, mostly between Jerry Brown and Bill Clinton, and Jerry Brown was seen as the old way to the Democrats. We're new Democrats now. They removed language about labor unions from the platform, and Bill Clinton promised they was for the death penalty. And when Democratic Party pundits were talking on news shows, and when they were being called liberal, they had this, we're not liberals, we're not liberals, I'm proving we're not liberals, we're for the death penalty too. I mean, it was kind of a Me Tooism. And the Republicans say, hey, I'm this much of an asshole, the Democrats will come along wimpily and say, I can be an asshole too. I can be just as much of an asshole as you are. Oh, it was painful. But I was thinking, okay, might be a way just to win the election. And once the Democrats are in power, they'll probably do what's right. Well, Bill Clinton um, defeated George Herbert Walker Bush not because people wanted Bill Clinton in there. Bill Clinton was won in 1992 and 1996 because of H. Ross Perot both elections, who drew more votes away from the Republicans than it did the Democrats. There were some people who were Democratic leaning that voted for Perot, but more Republicans than not ended up in the Perot coalition and took votes away from George Herbert Walker Bush in 92 and Bob Dole in 1996. Well, when Bill Clinton, during the first 2 years of the Bill Clinton presidency, um, they were attacked all the time with scandals, and Bill Clinton pushed through what Republicans were wanting back then, the North American Free Trade Agreement and the crime bill, because they wanted to look tough on crime. So they came up with this really horrible crime bill in 1994 that curtailed a lot of domestic civil liberties. Um, had these, three strikes you're out, and just it just pretty much found a way to incarcerate a lot of African Americans in prisons for crimes that white people would commit, but the criminal justice system really showed how much of an asshole they could be toward African Americans more than they would be toward white people. And then Bill Clinton appointed Hillary Clinton as the head of the National Healthcare Task Force and came up with a shitty healthcare plan that kept the private insurance companies and did nothing more than just put them on a light leash. And the Republicans said that was socialized medicine, and the Democrats were defeated in the House and Senate for the first time since the 1950s. And Bill Clinton would govern further right, letting Newt Gingrich pressure him into doing welfare reform, which was extremely cruel. And then in 1998, repealing Glass-Steagall, which basically taken all the barriers off, so there could be deregulation of our economy on overdrive, on investments, and basically deregulating Wall Street, which manifested in the 2007 2008 housing bubble. Darn tootin', I despise Bill Clinton. what he did. And then having that chump, Al Gore, and Joe Lieberman as his running mate in 2000, I mean, the Democratic Party was shifting further and further to the right, and we're losing even more and more and more in the voting booth because of the George W. Bush presidency being as bad as it was, and because of what's his name, Bush with the Iraq War, and Americans are kind of being fatigued with war and a slumbering economy. A charismatic young black man by the name of Barack Obama would become the nominee, but prior and then win the presidency in 2008. But prior to that, there was a nasty primary fight between him and Hillary Clinton. Now, looking back in hindsight, Barack Obama turned out to be as centrist as Hillary Clinton is, and as Bill Clinton was, he governed very similarly to Bill Clinton's presidency, but he was perceived as a little more progressive than what was the Democratic Party at that time. So, for a lot of people who were left leaning, they brought themselves into the delusion that Barack Obama was the way to go. There was a nasty primary fight between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and she was very bitter about losing to Barack Obama. Um, well, the Obama presidency happened, and Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, proving what a neocon she could be, and she just pretty much continued to bomb it. She continued as the senator of New York State when she was doing things like voting for the Iraq War and overseeing the changing of the violent revolution in Libya while she was the Secretary of State. And you have to understand, no fan of Muammar Gaddafi, no fan of the Libyan government then, but he warned the West that what would happen if he's removed. So you had a secular dictatorship that was warming up to the West anyway, and the West pretty much allowed the government to topple, and now you have slavery coming back. That's the result. The result of more neoconservative foreign policy. And let's face it, Hillary Clinton is a neocon just as much as George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and John Bolton. She's just probably slightly more socially liberal on a few safe issues. That's about the difference. But anyhow, let's jump forward to the year 2016. She thought she had this entitlement attitude that she was going to become the Democratic nominee. So she thought it was going to be a cakewalk. And Bernie Sanders came in and challenged her. And it was a really rough and tumble fight, reminiscent of 2000. The only difference is that Bernie Sanders was not just a mere progressive, he was what a Democrat should have always been all along. And that is a something that's reminiscent of that labor, liberal, left, New Deal um, mindset, policies, and values that the Democratic Party pretty much have abandoned for the most part. Bernie Sanders came back to be a reminder of that, and he came back to sit there and challenge Hillary Clinton to put a stop to what the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council, and the Clintons did to the Democratic Party all these years. Well, unfortunately, Bernie Sanders was cheated in 2016, and he didn't get the nomination. But Hillary Clinton cheated her way into the nomination. But the thing about it is, it's not just Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and those grumpy Republicans you see in the morning eating a sausage biscuit and having a cup of coffee at the local McDonald's, bitching about Democrats. Uh, Hillary Clinton is despised by any leftist worth their fiber. If you're an old-fashioned liberal, you had any sense about it, you would despise Hillary Clinton and have more reason to despise Hillary Clinton than those old fuckers over there in places like McDonald's eating a sausage biscuit, drinking coffee, bitching about Democrats, bitching about Bill Clinton, bitching about socialism, and Obama being a supposedly Kenyan-born Muslim, trying to destroy Western civilization, sitting there and listening to Fox News all day, and listening to Rush Limbaugh all day, and listening to getting drunk off Glenn Beck, and drunk off of Mark Levin and Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly, and you name it. Those people who hate Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton from the right, the people who are on the left that hates Bill and Hillary Clinton, are the ones that have absolute, utter, utter justification to do so. In 2020, I mean, between 2016 and 2020, when Donald Trump won, the Democratic Party establishment, the people who were loyal to Hillary Clinton, pretty much convinced Bernie Sanders, maybe I did cause Hillary Clinton to lose the election, and maybe Donald Trump is president because of me. And so he played it safe. He had a lot of establishment people, some of them for him, some of them probably there to sabotage his campaign. But even those that were for him, that were in the establishment, were cautioning Bernie Sanders to play it safe, and he took their advice. And they probably had the best of intention in the world, but uh, he just allowed himself to be cheated again by the establishment, by the corporate Democrats that controls the party like a cancer. But in the meantime, Hillary Clinton be interviewed and everything. And since the 2016 election to this day, she's interviewed. The topic of Bernie Sanders come along, it'll be like, well, Bernie Sanders hurt me. Bernie Sanders hurt me. Bernie Sanders hurt me. Bernie Sanders hurt me. And she's a victim, a woman that's worth tens of millions of dollars. I think she's up like $100 million or something. All that money that was being funneled from the Clinton Foundation. I'm sorry, if you're worth that kind of millions, and you got tens of millions, up to $100 million and over. I'm sorry, you're not a victim. You're not any kind of victim. I don't care if you're a woman. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you sleep with. I don't care what your demographics are. I don't care what you worship or don't worship. I don't care what kind of a human being you are. If you got that kind of money, you're not a victim under any circumstances. Hillary Clinton is not a victim, but she just makes herself like one. Well, yeah, it's personal because I've lost some friends because I voted for Jill Stein in 2016. I'll do it again. And I'm planning to vote for Howie Hawkins in 2020. But here's the thing. Hillary Clinton, it's not just enough that Hillary Clinton bashed Bernie Sanders. And obviously there's a hatred, a deep-rooted hatred between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. But she also went after my second choice in the 2020 presidential primaries, Tulsi Gabbard. And I have even some of my fellow Bernie Sanders supporters who are for Bernie and hate Hillary. Some of them even sided with Hillary over the Hillary Clinton versus Tulsi Gabbard. And they bought into this Russiagate bullshit, this McCarthyism that the Democrats are using, basically using right-wing tactics to go after Donald Trump. And so they're just borrowing from the Hillary Clinton playbook with this crap. And the thing about it is that Tulsi Gabbard is not fraternizing with Russians, and she's not the Assad apologist, and she's not any of these things that people have accused her of. And they have accused her of things that are paramount to treason, which puts her military career in jeopardy. And the only thing I'm angry about with Tulsi Gabbard is that she dropped the $50 million lawsuit. I guess I understand why she did at this point, because the presidential contest is behind her. I think that she's kind of made peace with the Democratic establishment once again, which I'm a little disappointed she didn't endorse Bernie, because it was the most natural. That was the most complimentary ticket I think would have happened, and you could have defeated Donald Trump if Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee and Tulsi Gabbard would be the running mate. I have said it time and time again why a Bernie Sanders Tulsi Gabbard ticket would have actually beaten Donald Trump in November, especially with this COVID crap that's coming on, and the economy, and the way that the foreign policy situation around the world and all of that. We needed Bernie Sanders. We needed Tulsi Gabbard. Unfortunately, even my fellow progressives didn't see it quite eye to eye like that, which they're foolish to not see the way I do in that regard. But in a nutshell, I despise Bill and Hillary Clinton. I wish that they would go away. I'm sick of seeing them. They have done more to destroy the left, and we are as far right as we are today in America right now because Bill and Hillary Clinton were an enabling force to shift this country in the right. They played a role in shift. They helped that Overton window shift further right, and so it, my the absolute that just absolute contempt that I have for the Clintons, it ain't because I sit there and get drunk off of talk radio and get drunk off of Fox News and get drunk off of Breitbart or what have you. My contempt for Bill and Hillary Clinton comes from a leftist perspective, and not even on that radical of a leftist perspective. Just somebody, it's just somebody that wants to keep that the New Deal going. Our Americanized version of social democracy, the closest thing we ever had to social democracy, was the New Deal and the Great Society to an extent. And unfortunately, we have walked so far away from it to the point that Dwight Eisenhower in the 1950s governed to the left of Bill Clinton in the 1990s and Barack Obama in the last decade. Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford governed to the left of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Ronald Reagan almost governed to the left of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Not quite, but it's mighty close. So I just want to make it clear where I'm coming from and my perspective. If you like what you heard, feel free to press the like button. Feel free to subscribe and share this information. And I really do urge you to do this because the algorithms are messed up and social media is against people with an alternative point of view. And I want the alternative point of view to come out. We need to have every voice out there, and as a free speech radical, that's where I stand. I'm Bernie Bro. As I said, like, share, subscribe. Peace.